Yes, the recording. Okay, now, last but certainly by no means least, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Vicky Terreros at the Anglo-Mexican Foundation. And Vicky and I work together. She is a teacher trainer, and has been working with Young Learner ELT for almost 20 years. She's also materials and a course designer for primary ELT, and has collaborated on training projects for primary teachers in the Mexican state sector. And her current interests include project-based learning, CLIL, and gamification in the young learner classroom. Over to you, Vicky.
Thank you, David. Thank you, everybody. I'm very happy to be here. And the name of my talk is project-based learning, friend or foe inside the Mexican primary classroom, which I think it's something that many of us, maybe in the region, we are facing with great challenges. And sometimes we really hate it. And sometimes we are kind of, oh, it looks nice, but let's see the challenge here. So the first thing is Mexico, who we are. We are approximately 130 million people, and 33 million people are between 0 to 13 years old. So that means that our population of children, it's huge, and teenagers, it's huge. Now, from there, we have preschool kids, and I'm talking about here the private sector, really, more than the public sector rather than the private one. We have 6 million and more than a half of children in preschool age. We have primary children between 6 to 11 years old, which is the biggest number in our education sector and programs. And then the secondary kids, that again, it's a reduced number, which is really a pity because many kids just finish primary school and they have to go and work, or they can't continue with their studies, which is really, really pity. So as you can see, we are a lot of children in our classrooms and also in our country. And what is important here is that we need teachers. In the public sector, approximately, these are numbers from the Mexican Ministry of Education of the school year 2016 to 2017. The public sector has more than 12, almost 13 million children in the primary education. And we have 88,000 and a half teachers working with them, but only a very few work with them when we talk about teaching English. The total number of teachers working for the public sector in Mexico, it's 50,274 English teachers. And this means that they are working in preschool, primary, and secondary education, which is a very low number, which we need more and more English teachers, but qualified English teachers. And in order to face the new education policy in our country, the new program, we really need good teachers, and good teachers with a good level of English, C1s, B2s, teachers who are ready to teach young learners, who could face the responsibility, okay? And can you imagine a teacher who has to teach English to preschool children, primary and secondary, in one classroom? Sometimes they put together the primary and secondary kids together, the preschool in another classroom, and you end up with 50 children. So it's very complex. So our need is increasing, and as you can see, the private sector is very, very small. The number of children attending this sector in my country is really small, 1,313,000 1,096 students approximately, and there are 9,000 teachers. And the big question again, are those teachers qualified? No, unfortunately, not all of them, and not all of them in the public sector. So that's the first challenge when we talk about English language in Mexico. And that's the first thing that we have to bear in mind in this talk. Because the Ministry of Education has decided implemented a new syllabus and tries to make English a priority. The new English program is based on the competencies, 21st century skills, PBL, CLIL, which we know that they are great ways in which children can learn in a different way. David and Vinny talk about this motivation, talk about that it's time for children to be considered and out and behind of the sofa, and that they are motivated in a very different way, not with rewards like chocolates, but they should be encouraged and nurtured. And this change in the program is something really important. But the first challenge is what teachers face. And we know in our country, unfortunately, not all the teachers are ready to embrace the program. The program wants to lead children from preschool to secondary school, from A1 to B1 in the Common European Framework. And the first problem is also the time, because children are going to work with English 2.5 hours a week in the primary classroom. And again, this is a big challenge. How could we pull our children from a 0 level into a B1 level during their school life in basic education in our country, and with just little time? Ideally, the new program is going to provide this support, this scaffolding, so we go slowly, but the idea is that we could accomplish this. And basically, project-based learning is the key. And the challenges are there, but it's very, very important that we bear in mind the importance of project-based learning. Project-based learning, as maybe you know, has lots of nice ways in which children can learn, and they can learn at their own pace in a certain way. It is a model for the classroom. It is a model for the classroom activity. It is going to provide the students with lots of input and a variety of activities that can lead them to more knowledge, to gather knowledge and feel this interest in learning that we listen in our second talk with Luciana. She mentioned that to increase this interest of reading, of learning in children, that's more motivating than a sticker, for example. And this project-based learning emphasizes learning activities that are long-term, that it's not only one class, but also interdisciplinary, which means that it's not only English, but it's literature, it's culture, it's sports, is what kids can bring into the classroom. And that's, I think, the magic of project-based. But again, the big question is, are we teachers ready? Are children ready? And absolutely, it's a learner-centered approach in the classroom, which sometimes is difficult for many, many teachers to kind of distance themselves and allow children to work and discover things, and sometimes could be risky for some teachers. What are the benefits? Of course, it offers multiple ways. I was reading some comments, and someone mentioned in the general comments that it gives options, this reading that Luciana presented us, and this storytelling that Maria Jose showed us and talked about, Maria Jesus, sorry. They mentioned this variety of opportunities and activities, and this project-based learning allows children to show us what they know, not in an order, not in a competitive way, but in a collaborative way. Everybody knows something, and everybody can give something to their team, to their group, to the class. Obviously, the classroom environment is changed. It is a very kind of place where values are present: sharing, respect, friendship, responsibility of their own task, of the things that they have to do in order to collaborate with others. Obviously, it encourages the use of technical tools. Unfortunately, again, this is one of the challenges, because not every school in the public sector and the private sector has access to a minimum of a computer lab or internet. So sometimes they have to go to a traditional library, but it's okay. But it's a challenge, because changes in programs should be followed with covering the needs of the schools in order to allow the children and teachers to make the most of these new programs. It also has to do with this kind of self-evaluation, self-learning. I'm going to do as a child, I'm going to choose, I want to talk about dogs, I want to talk about the food in my community, I want to talk, so I need to do some reading to look for some information. So it's a kind of self-directed learning. And I think, and I absolutely agree with you, Maria Jesus, it is a challenge to the school culture, particularly very traditional ones. It's a challenge. And I think the educational policy here, it's good, but it's a challenge that we are maybe not ready to face yet. It's a learning experience. Of course, it helps the students to develop a variety of social skills. We need that as part of the 21st century skills. We have to relate with people, we have to negotiate, we have to cooperate. As we said, the learning environment is different, and it provides a means to transfer responsibility to our kids in the classroom. And the learning is personalized. I'm learning at my own pace in a certain way, and I'm learning what I need and I want, and I'm interested in learning. And I value that. My teacher has given me this kind of freedom of choices. I can choose. And that's another important thing about PBL. As we have this cycle of PBL, just to remember, we start with a topic. And I think this can relate with the story, with the reading, the topic, and it could be so local. We can explore the community, what children know about the community. And then we go into brainstorm, and then a driving question that allows us and the kid and the children to work in something we want, in something that it's interesting. How these community in which we produce, I don't know, a certain handcraft or a certain traditional dish, or we have this traditional dance, how can these will impact my community if I promote it more, or if I can show others my local culture or my local stories in a storytelling project or in a reading project. And then I have to do some research. And this research that's one of the challenges. Sometimes we don't have enough books, sometimes we don't have enough internet access, and sometimes we as teachers, we need to work hard to get that information. But once it's there, it could be shared within the school with other teachers. And that's one of the benefits of PBL, that it could make a better learning community, more inclusive, more in a cooperative way, that teachers and students can work. And someone here addressed parents, and absolutely, parents are challenged with this kind of way of working in the classroom. Sometimes they don't understand it. They don't, and I mean, we can understand that it is not the way they learn. And for them, it's like sometimes it gives the sensation that children are not learning grammar, or are not learning vocabulary. They can't say it. So it's important. And then the project, the presentation. And this is, again, something very important, because many teachers, everything is a poster, or everything is a kind of, a brochure. We can do more than that. And the assessment is not a number. The assessment is feedback from their peers, is feedback from the teacher, is their own self-assessment. So this is promoting critical thinking in a very nice way for the children. And this feedback that we receive, not only from the teacher, but also from our peers, and sometimes from other classes, or from other classmates from other grades or classrooms, is very, very important. And the assessment, someone mentioned, and I agree, Marielle, assessment has to be kind of, again, addressed in everything. In my personal experience working in the private sector in a language school, assessment, the challenges has to be very clear for everybody. Teachers need to understand the rubric, students need to do that, and parents. And another important thing is how much we involve parents into these. If we don't involve them and we help them to have clear the intention and all the possibilities that PBL offers to their children, it could be a serious drawback and a very big problem to address. We have here some examples of a brainstorm. It was about the UK, and children, they were kind of really interesting after watching a video that maybe you know about James Bond and the Queen. And it was very interesting for them, this kind of culture. They didn't know anything about that, and they were surprised that James Bond was a spy, and others were impressed by Queen Elizabeth and her dogs. And children started asking many questions. Who's the Queen? Is the Queen married? Does she have children? How do you call them? And then, who's James Bond? And as simple as that, a simple video of 4 or 5 minutes just was kind of so helpful. So children were also interested about London. Okay, where is that city? How can I get there? Well, we know they speak English, but what else is there? So it's this curiosity, and this curiosity is the one that pushes them to learn more, to want to investigate something. And the more questions they have, the better for everybody, because that means that they are engaged without any kind of other prize or something like that. It comes natural in that sense. And yes, it's amazing how projects can raise children's curiosity and cultural awareness. Absolutely, absolutely. So the challenges. Obviously, the challenges of PBL and the new program in both in the private, in the public sector, and in some schools in the private sector, both, they are facing a change in teaching and learning. What can we do? Continuous professional development. That's a key. And I think what you're doing now, all of you that are attending this conference, this is the important thing. Workshops, groups in Facebook, serious groups like the IATEFL and others that are kind of addressing these issues in a very professional way. The internet. Well, you already have the IATEFL YLTSIG, which is something that it's very helpful. And you can go to the internet and see all the things they do, and then all the people who are involved and that you can ask for help. That's something that's very important. We are not alone, okay, in this one. Another important thing is we need to train our children. Most Mexican children are being trained in a more traditional way. So new textbooks, some programs for teachers are being changed, which is really nice, but it's not going to be an easy process, and it's not going to happen in a couple of years. It's going to take time. Our attitude towards change as teachers, sometimes we are very reluctant to change, because this kind of work, it's going to demand more from us. The understanding of the rationale behind the program, we need to understand what's project-based learning, what's skill, what's 21st century skills, what's a learner-centered approach. We can't go into this by just like, okay, yes, I can do it. No, this is not just as simple. It requires some reading, it requires some workshops, it requires some follow-up and some help and support from others. I guess that most of us who are here, we are trying to change and to give children a better learning environment. So this is the moment that we as a community, as a teaching community, we can help each other when we face these challenges and provide support and advice. Another important thing is the language grading. The way we adapt materials, the way we design materials, it's based on how much we know our children. And it's not only how much do we know about them in terms of how old they are, but their skills, what they can do. Unfortunately, if their L1 skills are not well developed, it's going to affect their development and their skills when learning an L2. So we need to train them, and we need to think about a solid class profile in which we know what can our children can do and what they would be able to do. And also according to the program, some cases we want to do more, and sometimes the program just addresses recognition of something and understanding, and sometimes we want to push that. So we have to get a balance and find ways to match what we are doing in the English class and the Spanish class, which is also a challenge because not many Spanish teachers are eager to share or sometimes to be kind or nice to the English teachers. But again, we are a community, so maybe this can help to build a better relationship with other teachers in our communities. How does project-based learning fit in the curriculum, in the syllabus? In the public sector, textbooks are designed in a way in which children develop every 2 months a project. Of course, it's like there are the first attempts, and maybe the program will be revised in some years or after the first generations using the new program will come out. But the idea is that in that part, it's divided. It's already kind of, there's a specification about that. In the private sector, unfortunately, programs have become very, very ambitious. And still they don't match the Spanish program with the English program. So that's one of the challenges, but again, we need maybe to explore a bit more what it's being done in the Spanish class. And the projects, as I said before, it's not posters, it's not brochures. Could be, I'm just impressed with Maria Jesus and her storytelling, and Luciana, this thing about reading, the magic of reading, the power of reading, and that it's so important for children and to learn from there. And obviously we need time and content, and unfortunately our English classes are always the ones affected by other subjects and by other teachers. The Mother's Day festival, they use the English hour to rehearse and stuff like that, so it's kind of very important. And finally, the number of students, something that I have find very useful for this project based is workstations. So you can devote time in the public sector. We have 45, even 50 children in the classroom. So teamwork, workstations, and very clear classroom rules are going to be very helpful. But everything needs kind of training, just little by little. Be patient. Be patient, because our kids, they are feeling like us. They are kind of, oh, what is this new thing that we are trying? I'm not sure if I'm doing it correct. So at the beginning, but I think that if we are here teaching children, I think that we could do it, that we could be consistent, that we could really face this challenge, okay? And obviously the tasks and the planning are very important as well. They are like things that we need to address. The planning, we need to plan our lessons. These lessons are not magic. And the resources. We need this collaboration. We need these bringing materials us, but we can ask kids to bring materials to our classroom. It doesn't matter if they are in L1, we can change it into L2, but this thing of getting our students involved, it's very valuable. It's very, very valuable in our challenges when we face this new approach to the classroom and this new vision that the new policies are giving us something very different to work with. So I think we are just having a couple of minutes regarding this, but the challenges are there. The challenges are worth to work with and to tackle them, because what's next? Well, more schools embracing this model, more teachers and learners working, more technology. There's a change in the mindset of education authorities and teachers, which is very nice. It's going to take time. And more groups in social networks or associations for teachers to join and continue with their development. And this means new ways to organize learning. And well, finally, I see a question, Cecil. If you want, there's my email there, so you can send me an email, and I'm for sure I will give you some examples of the workstations that you can use.
Thank you so much, Vicky. That was a great focus on PBL in the Mexican context, and it was wonderful to see how you've really synthesized all of those challenges and all of those issues and really put them out there. And what was really interesting was that colleagues around the region could really empathize with those challenges. And it was really interesting to see how you've thought about ways to overcome them, such as with the workstation. So it would be great to see how PBL continues to evolve in Mexico, and as you said, adapted to the context, and also in other countries around the region. So that was a great ending to our showcase on the Americas. Thank you so much, Vicky, for that talk.
No, thanks to you, thanks to everybody, and let's share. That's
Great,
the
thank you.
idea of this conference.